Let's go to the
Good games,
Rude
Evan.
guest hotline. Rude, the most reliable heating and air conditioning products in the DMV. Talk to our buddy, the Hall of Famer David Aldridge, covers the Commanders and all things DC sports as a columnist in The Athletic, has been writing thoughtful pieces on the Commanders here at the end of the season and what lies ahead. David, it's Grant and Danny. Good to talk to you again. How are you?
Great, fellas. How are you?
Very well.
Very well. How surprised were you by the divorce with Cliff Kingsbury?
A little. I mean, shocked, no. A little surprised that they couldn't work it out. You think that when the season's done and everybody can kind of calm down a little bit, because this is very emotional. Guys get very emotional after wins, after losses, and certainly after a bad season like they had. I thought, well, maybe they'll take a day or two and then they'll figure out a common ground. They didn't. That was a bit surprising. But shocked? I wouldn't say shocked, no. I would have been shocked if they had kept Joe Witt. That would have shocked me.
Yes. I think Joe Witt would have been shocked too, maybe pleasantly so.
Exactly.
Who was more responsible, do you think, for Kingsbury's dismissal, Peters or Quinn?
Oh, I don't know. Grant, it's hard to kind of put a percentage on it. This guy's was responsible for 63%, and the other guy was responsible for 37%. I don't know. I think the injury to Jaden in the Seattle game was a shock to the whole organization, and really kind of forced some really hard questions to start being asked. Like, what are we doing? This is our franchise quarterback. We can't just keep running him out there because we feel like it or because, he's fun to watch. Like, we have to be more mindful of mitigating risk, not eliminating risk. Can't eliminate risk. It's football and it's very violent, but mitigating it. Like, there's things that we can do to put him in, to expose him to fewer potential shots. There's things we can do. And I think that game kind of woke everybody up a little bit. And I certainly don't think. Let's put it this way. I don't think Adam Peters was going to sit idly by and not say anything if this is how he genuinely felt. My guess is that maybe it took Quinn a little longer because he and Cliff were close and had a good relationship, and Dan really does want to defer to the coordinators. It took him a very long time to kind of step in and do things. So I would say, if you're asking me to take a guess, and it would be a guess, probably more Peters than Quinn, but I don't think Quinn's number is 0.
David Aldridge with us here on Grant and Danny. David, right about a year ago, I sat in this very chair from PVI Office Furniture, and I said, I can't believe how lucky they are they get to keep the entire staff. The continuity on this staff is unbelievable. Usually after an NFC title game appearance, you get picked over and you kind of have to rebuild the thing. That was about a year ago. How did we get here from there?
I mean, it's pretty simple. The exact inverse of the season they had last year. And I know it is. Look, it's not good when both of your coordinators get cashiered on the same day. Like, that's not good. You can't spin it as this is a good day for the organization. It's a bad day for the organization. But if the Commanders had gone to Philly and won that game. Now, they didn't. They got destroyed. I get that. But if they had gone in there, they were on a roll, maybe they get on the heater of all heaters, and they win that game, and they're in the Super Bowl, no one would have been shocked if Cliff Kingsbury had left after last season and gone to be a head coach somewhere. No one would have been shocked if Joe Witt had left last season and become a head coach somewhere. Nobody. So this is the result of failure. That's why we're where we are, because they went 5-12 and looked bad doing it. And failure creates a urgency to change that sometimes maybe, sometimes I think it's overwrought, but I get it. These are very competitive people. They do not like this. They do not like the way that they played this year, and they want to change it. And I think the proof is in the pudding that they moved on from a guy that had a really, really good season last year with a rookie quarterback. Had an incredibly successful rookie season. And they moved on from him because there were just some things he didn't want to do to change a little bit. And that's kind of what I was getting at today when I wrote, everybody, look, people, you have to change. In life, you have to change. You can't be the same person all the time. And I'm just going to do it this way. And you have to change. And Jaden Daniels is going to have to change. And Adam Peters is going to have to change. And Dan Quinn's going to have to change for this thing to have any chance to work.
Yeah, check out the piece from David Aldridge. Great column. Commanders' future depends on flexibility from Daniels, Quinn, and Peters in The Athletic. Now, I want to go back to something you had said, which was, you think maybe this had something to do with the injuries or the Seattle game. Drill down on that for me a little bit, because he never got hurt on a designed run. He only really got hurt scrambling. The last one against Seattle was an RPO, which you can make the case they should have been calling at that point of the game. But it was an RPO where Dan Quinn said publicly, and from what I was told privately, he shouldn't have been running anyway. They have never run on that RPO. The plays there in the end zone. So it's mostly choices by Daniels to run, who chooses to run at one of the highest rates we've seen in the league in a long, long time. Should Cliff Kingsbury be held accountable for that?
Well, for that one play, probably not. But again, it's about what's the best way to utilize Jaden Daniels going forward. Is it to put him in shotgun every play? Is it to have a whole bunch of RPOs in your offense? Is it to get away from the run? They didn't abandon the run. I'm not saying that. They got away from it, though, in games where they didn't have to get away from the run. And again, what I'm talking about is mitigating risk, not eliminating it. And if it seems to me, I wasn't in the room when they had the meeting, but it seems to me that Cliff Kingsbury said, "I'm not changing my offense. This is my offense. This is what I do." And they said, "You got to change the offense or we can't go forward anymore." And he said, "I'm not changing." And they said, "Well, we can't go forward anymore." With something else, I would, maybe the reporting will come out in the next few weeks, but I don't think it was anything more than that. And again, I think the organization, looking at it, said, Jaden Daniels got hurt 3 times in 7 games. That cannot happen going forward. Whether it's Jaden's fault or somebody else's fault, that can't happen. They were incredibly lucky that he didn't suffer a catastrophic injury, being injured 3 separate times in the season to the point where he couldn't play the next game. They were incredibly lucky. That does not usually happen with quarterbacks. Usually, if you get hurt 3 times, one of those 3 puts you on the shelf for a long time. And they got lucky. And it can't happen again. And so I think that's where they're like, all right, what's the best way to give us the best chance of keeping Jaden Daniels healthy and upright as long as possible?
David, you touched on it, but I want to go to the Dan Quinn angle on this. These are 2 handpicked coordinators. He could have picked a lot of OCs. One was, the DC is his buddy that he's worked with before, gave him a shot, doesn't work. Maybe less emphasis there. But the OC, that's kind of what you decided to run, and then that guy showed up and they ran that sort of stuff. What does it say for him in terms of maybe the sands in the hourglass now starting to run out for him in terms of his future here?
There is no question he's on the clock for sure. I mean, look, you don't usually get to pick 3 coordinators, 3 sets of coordinators. You usually get 2, and that's it. And the second one better work. So whoever he picks, and Adam Peters made it very clear it's going to be Dan Quinn's pick on both of them. They better work out. It better work out next year. There better be much more continuity on the offensive side, and there much just improvement across the board on the defensive side, because it just was a complete disaster. It was a fast disaster with Witt. It was a slower disaster with Quinn, but they were a little better. Yes, they were a little better. They gave up a 98-yard, 17-play, 12-minute drive in Minnesota when Dan Quinn was calling the defense. So yes, it was slower. They still got scored on. So
it took longer to score. Basically, was the difference.
Yeah, it took longer to score, but they still got scored on, and they still didn't turn anybody over. The whole season, right? So they've got to figure that out on the defensive side. That's not all scheme. That's personnel. They got to get better players on the field next year that can do more things to help them win games.
David Aldridge on Grant and Danny. So let's just go further down this path of what lies ahead then. Along with the column, you talk about the flexibility, the versatility needed, everybody looking in the mirror here. What do you think is the right play in terms of Daniels' future? And if Cliff was not aligned with their vision of what's best for business for Five, then what is exactly? What do you think they want to see? Is it more under center? Is it more turn around hand to the running back and not have a run option for the quarterback? Like, what do you think this will and should look like?
I mean, I think using Jaden's legs should be a bug and not a feature. That should not be like the default we go to 12 times a game. Even though he can do it. Can he do it? Yes, he can do it. We saw him do it last year. He made incredible plays last year. This year he tried to do the same plays and he got hurt 3 times. Okay? So, this is simple. I mean, to me, this is simple. You get a franchise quarterback once every 20 years or so if you're lucky. For them, it took longer. He's a franchise quarterback. They're building a $3.8 billion stadium because of Jaden Daniels. There's nothing else that's causing that. Okay? You've got to be smart about this. And so I don't think it's like you're putting him in bubble wrap and telling him never to drop back and to never run. You're telling him maybe you get somebody in here from the Shanahan tree where they throw the ball a lot, but they also run it a lot, and they continue to run the ball. And so that when it's done at its best, and I don't think that's not unreasonable, guys. I mean, I love Cliff Kingsbury's offense. He's the only guy that was running it. Okay, there's 27 guys running Shanahan. Well, okay, you tried it with Cliff, it didn't work. Go to one of the 27 guys that run the Shanahan offense and see if that works. I don't think Jaden Daniels isn't going to be able to pick up the offense that everybody in the NFL uses. Like, I find that kind of hard to believe. By all accounts, he's an incredibly hard worker. He's incredibly diligent. He watches a ton of film. I think he'll be able to pick the offense up. I don't think this is going to be that big a deal.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure there are that many offenses he couldn't pick up. I don't think you got to cater something to him. Like, this is a guy that can be a chameleon and can do it a lot of different ways. What did you make of, the endorsement from him? Maybe mattered less because that's pretty common, but they do have a very, very close relationship.
Sure.
Cliff was a big Daniels guy before they drafted him. And then the tweet from his mother, I found really interesting. A clear kind of shot across the bow endorsement after the story had come out that Cliff was in some trouble and at odds with the GM. I found that really interesting.
It doesn't surprise me. I mean, he was very successful with Cliff. I don't. Why would that surprise you? That they wanted to keep going with Cliff because he ran an offense that was perfect for Jaden. Allowed Jaden to do the thing, to play the way he's played his entire life. Right? He's been in shotgun almost all of his life. I get it. That doesn't surprise me. I mean,
I'm not surprised, but you don't see it's not just the mom. It's like a manager of sorts, like basically endorse a coaching candidate very often publicly for a quarterback.
You don't, but that doesn't mean it doesn't happen privately. It happens, so. No, I mean, I'm not saying. Look, is it? A lot of people are on social media that weren't on social media 10 years ago. I don't know what to tell you. That's how people communicate with each other now. It's not my method, but that's how a lot of people communicate with each other now. So it doesn't shock me. Like, again, if you go back and look at the history of this league, Peyton Manning having Tom Moore as his offensive coordinator for 15 years, that's the exception. That's not the rule. The rule is most quarterbacks go through a lot of offensive coordinators over the course of their career. Patrick Mahomes has been really lucky that Andy Reid's been his coach and his de facto OC this whole time. That's great. Doesn't usually roll that way. Doesn't usually happen that way. Usually, I mean, the Commanders were a dumpster fire, so it's probably a bad example, but how many quarterbacks has Terry McLaurin played for? How many offensive coordinators has Terry McLaurin played for? That's usually what happens even on the good teams because guys leave. Successful teams, successful OCs, they move on. And so, I guess a little unusual. I'm not I don't think it portends anything disastrous going forward. I think that, I think people are. I tend to view most adults as adults. I think we all have bosses, and then sometimes those bosses leave, and now you have new bosses. Most people don't quit their jobs. Most people try to work it out with the new boss, and I suspect that Jaden Daniels will try to work it out with the new boss, whoever that is. And I think they will do fine because he's really good. And I think they will hire a very dynamic offensive coordinator. And we'll see about the receiver room and the tight end room because those need upgrades to me. I think those are priorities, but they may have to spend so much capital getting the defense straight that they may not be able to do that next year. But I do think that I think the offensive line's pretty good. I think the running backs room's pretty good. I don't think it's bad. I don't think the receivers room is terrible. I just think they need to add to it. Either a player or two. And I think they need to sign a tight end. I do. That's David's opinion. Because I don't think there's a tight end there that scares other defenses right now. But Jaden's the guy. He's the spark plug, and he makes it all work. And I think if they, with a couple of tweaks next year, he can make it work again.
DA, what do you make of the Jordan Schultz report that one of the issues was the meddling of the general manager with coaches, coordinators about playing time, personnel, and the like?
I don't doubt for a moment that someone told him that. I would say this. Adam Peters and Dan Quinn have made it very clear that they are a field entry, as they say in horse racing. You get one, you get the other. They're joined at the hip. They do not do things that the other person disagrees with very much. So I would just say this. It is, I think, I'm not casting aspersions on the report. The report is the report. What I'm saying is that it is convenient that this story is coming out now after coaches have been fired.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to know where it came from. What I had said earlier in the show is it almost certainly came from somebody who's close to one of these coaches, but because someone's telling you about someone after a divorce doesn't mean they're wrong either, right?
It doesn't mean they're wrong, but it does. But I'll just say this. If this was a problem all year, why is it that we didn't hear about it until after people were fired? If it was a problem all year, if somebody said, hey, I can't cook, I can't do my job because the front office keeps messing me up, okay, that would have been a story in week 8.
Right.
It could have been a story in week 12. The catalyst seems to be the coaches got fired, and now there's reports of dysfunction. That doesn't mean, to your point, it doesn't mean those reports are wrong.
Yeah.
It just means that they have to be viewed in the context of coaches getting fired and maybe trying to explain why they got fired. And I don't think it's unreasonable to kind of view that then through the lens of, okay, these are people that want to work again in the NFL, and they have to explain what happened in Washington. Well, that's what happened in Washington. The GM meddled. Okay. I mean, maybe this is a very strong, analytically driven department. A year ago, when we thought Adam Peters hung the moon, everybody loved that. Everybody loved that he was hiring every analytics person under the sun to evaluate everything that was going on in the football field. And they were going to be proactive about the players they brought in here. And they weren't going to sit back and idly do nothing. And they're going to be, this is a guy that knows players, and he's hiring other people that know players. 12 months later, after 5-12, they're meddling. So, which is, I get it. You got to win. Got to win.
Flirting or harassment. You know what I mean?
Yeah, when you don't win, everything's fair game.
Yeah, when I do it, it's harassment.
Yeah,
when
good-looking guy does it, it's flirting.
5-12, everything's fair game.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm just saying everything's fair game when you're 5-12.
David Aldridge, senior columnist. Check out his column in The Athletic. Commander's future depends on flexibility from Daniels, Quinn, Peters. Always excellent to get you on the show, buddy. Thank you.
Anytime, fellas. Thank you.
Look forward
Appreciate
to chatting again soon. There is the Hall of Famer, David Aldridge, on Grant and Danny.